Today we're talking about how stress disrupts your brain's focus and memory. Welcome back to another episode of the Movement, Mind, and Meaning podcast. I'm your host, Megan Nolan, and today we're talking about stress, baby. We talk about stress a lot, actually, but I don't think I've ever sung that little song for you before, and maybe I just showed you how old I am, because you may or may not know that song. And if you do, hey friend. If you don't, hey, no worries, all good. Just a random little ditty to get us going. So before we get going and talking about stress, I want to just remind you that this is something that we all deal with, and that the more you are empowered with tools and understanding, the more you can meet yourself with compassionate curiosity and non-judgmental self-awareness, which, as you may not know, or maybe you do know, are two huge components of the work that I do inside the Power Pause movement. And that's really what it's all about, is you learning more about yourself. And today we're talking about your brain and what happens to your brain when you're stressed out, and why you may feel like you can do a lot when you've got a lot going on and your mile-long to-do list doesn't freak you out, and the fact that you have 84 tabs open and you can't find the one playing music to turn it off because you're staring at the blank Google Doc and nothing's coming out of your brain. That might be familiar to you, or it might not. Maybe that's not how you handle, quote unquote, stress. So let's talk about it. What happens when we're experiencing stress in relation to your ability to perform and get things done at work, to show up as a focused and happy and grounded human that's actually, able to do the things that are being asked of you? Well, stress, as you know, is a natural response to things that are happening in our environment or inside of us, and that is basically calling us to action, right? It's triggering a response in your body. So when we're experiencing stress, your body goes into a survival mode, right? You're in a sympathetic, very activated state, and you are working towards taking action on something, right? Whether that is, running away from the saber-toothed tiger or tackling the mile-long to-do list, what's happening is that your brain is perceiving a threat, right? Whether it's the inbox 482,000 or, I don't know, a speeding car flying out of nowhere. So your body is perceiving it the same way, right? That's the natural wiring of the nervous system. So what's happening here is that it's very active in the survival center of the brain, and your main high functioning area of the brain, called your prefrontal cortex, is basically hijacked. It's offline, right? And so that's the part of your brain that is really needed to get the things on the list done, right? That part of your brain controls focus, decision making, time management. So here's where this gets really interesting, is that long-term chronic stress actually leads to both functional and structural brain changes to the prefrontal cortex. Cortisol, which is our main stress hormone, that is the activator, gets you into action, has a negative effect on the prefrontal cortex area of the brain. That's what can lead to the structural and functional challenges, right? And so this is research done by the Nature Reviews Neuroscience magazine. I'm just looking at it. It was released in 2009, so it's fairly recent. But again, we're starting to really understand the effect that stress has on us long term. Thereby, important for us to do what we can, including taking power pauses throughout the day, to bring your stress levels down, right? Because if it's having that negative effect on the current moment performance, i.e. you can't stay focused to complete a task, and then long term it's actually having negative effects on that part of the brain, it's a no bueno, right? It's a no bueno. And so, give yourself some grace, but just know that it's so important for the overall quality of your life and your happiness and your performance to keep your stress levels down, so that your brain is not perceiving threat, and so that the amygdala, which is the survival center, is able to relax, right? And so because we're not having high levels of cortisol, not only is your brain actually able to tap into that higher wisdom and guidance and creativity and flow and happy humanness, but you're also not having that negative long-term effect on the actual brain itself. Okay, so that's really just important to know, is that we want to make sure your executive function is online. So how do we do that? Well, how do you keep your stress levels down throughout the day so that you can stay in that nice regulated state? Well, that's where power pauses come in, right? And as you know, power pauses are the most effective way for you to cultivate calm on command. Little 2-minute breaks to get out of your head into your body. Super simple, super effective, being able to cultivate that level of groundedness and focus and center, right? As simple as taking some slow, deep breaths, getting up and moving your body, going for a walk, going outside with your dog if you're working from home, putting on a song that you like and shaking, whatever it is, right? And so it's very important for you to mitigate the effects of stress consistently, right? Just like you drink water throughout the day, taking little power pauses throughout the day, as well as the other things you do to support your body, on a functional level, like get enough sleep, eat enough vegetables, drink enough water, exercise regularly, all of those things, very important. But throughout the workday, really important to keep dialing down the stress level for the reasons we just mentioned. So the other one is what I wanted to speak to today. Sorry, I got distracted. I don't know if I told you this or you know this. So I live on Maui. And so periodically when the volcano is erupting on the big island of Hawaii, Kilauea currently, we get a lot of VOG, which is volcanic smog that blows over here. And so it contributes to our own brain fog in an interestingly natural way. So I apologize, my brain did a little there. And if you hear me stuffy, that's what's happening, allergies. So let's talk about focus and function of the brain. So this facade of multitasking, right? We might think that the fact that you have 84 tabs open and you're just hoppy-bopping all over back and forth is actually helping you to get more done quickly. Nope, wrong. What? Well, so there's an incredible study that came out of Stanford University, which is here in the US, that told us that actually heavy here we go, there's the bug. Multitaskers performed worse on memory and attention tests than non-multitaskers, even when they weren't multitasking. Say that again. People that multitask a lot actually performed worse on memory and attention tests, even if they weren't multitasking. Why is this? Well, partially because of the high levels of stress we were just talking to and the effect on the brain, but your brain doesn't actually multitask well. When we jump from task to task, there's a period of reorganization that happens when we go to a new task. And if you were constantly doing that throughout the day, you're actually wasting mental energy because you're basically resetting and restarting yourself every time you switch. So that leads to higher levels of cognitive fatigue, so brain fatigue, which then, of course, decreases your ability to focus and perform well. Oh. So you may think you're actually getting more done by juggling more tasks, but your brain is draining energy, right? I'm not great at doing this, but my partner will periodically and just open my phone for me and remind me I need to do this and just go fung, fung, fung and close down all the apps running in the background. Typically it takes him about half an hour. But, he's trying to do something on my phone and it's running slow and he's like, have you done that lately? And then it's like half an hour later and he's still closing all the apps. I don't know. Are you supposed to do that every day? I don't do that. But anyways, that's essentially what's happening when we're attempting to multitask, is that your brain is like running all of these things because it's trying to go from task A to task B to task C to task F back to A. You think about it, right? Just when I explain it that way, it's like, oh, yeah, it's actually wasting time, wasting caloric energy, and it slows things down, right? It's slowing down the efficacy of your work and the quality of your work because you're actually more likely to make mistakes, right? So that's really interesting. That's the performing worse on these tasks. So we're more likely to make mistakes when we're multitasking, okay? So that's really important because that can cause, that sort of cognitive crash or the brain fatigue or the brain fog or that feeling of like, I can't do anything and totally freezing, which then adds to our stress levels. So the other thing to think about is when we are experiencing these high pressure situations where we have, either short-term deadlines on a project or a long-term deadline. And it's really common for us to go into this looping pattern of when we miss a task or when we make a mistake or when we miss a deadline, to have this really negative thought pattern that can lead to guilt and shame. So one of the techniques of the mind when we make mistakes, so that it thinks it's trying to be helpful for us and not make the mistake again, is to really hyperfixate on the mistakes and then use the tools of guilt and shame to really pour it on thick, if you will, so that we not only don't make the mistake again, we try to learn from it. And so it's a technique of the mind to protect us from making it, a recurring issue. But the interesting thing is that technique actually triggers more stress, right? Because when we are in that negative feeling of guilt or shame, right, which is a more contractive, restricted emotional pattern, it actually triggers more of a negative state energetically in your nervous system, right? It causes us to contract even more. And when we're in that negative contracted state, it sends the signal of stress and worry up to the brain, so it triggers more stress, right? And so if the body, the state of the nervous system, is triggering more stress in the brain, then for the reasons we just spoke to, it's more likely that we're going to continue to make mistakes, right? And it just triggers that loop of stress leading to shame, shame leading to stress, and just spiraling in that, which is when we're in that stress state, the quality of our work is not as high, our performance is lower, our mood is lower, we're basically pushing our way through things rather than being in that more uplifted, energetic, focused, happy, grounded state, ready to perform in that more regulated, expansive state where your quality of work is higher because the amygdala is offline and the prefrontal cortex is online. So it's really important for us to have this level of compassion of, okay, if you're feeling really pressurized, if you're feeling really stressed out about the task that's at hand, it's really important for us to not default back to these different patterns of, avoiding tasks, being perfectionist, making sure that we are, not delegating things out. These are all success-stopping patterns. These are all stress reactions that we can tend to have when we're in these high-pressure situations, or even just in a regular workday where we're feeling kind of stressed out, or if we're in that sort of reactive fight or flight mode. So it's really important for us to be aware of that and not be constantly switching from task to task, switching from this role to this role, or, wearing different hats, either in your own business or as a leader on your team. And so this bleeds mental energy. And so it's really important for us to just be aware of the way that stress can affect us and affect your performance, affect your productivity. And, if you are setting goals for yourself, to really be mindful of your approach to looking at the progress on those goals, right? And looking at it from that gain perspective of what are you learning, how are you growing, where are you now compared to where you were when you set the goal and you started, right? So if we default to the more critical, negative perspective on things, it really limits your ability to perform at a high level. And so when we are in that more critical mind state, it can again trigger that pattern of shame and guilt and doubt and fear. And then that's a loop, right? So that's a loop. Is shame can cause more stress, which makes focus even harder. And so we want to make sure that you're periodically reflecting on the progress, making sure that you're doing things to stay grounded, stay centered, stay regulated in your nervous system so that you're not constantly reacting and not constantly reactive because of being in a very stimulated, overworked, overwhelmed, stressed state. So that's why it's so important for you to take these little brain breaks throughout the day, right? And that's really what power pauses are. Their brain breaks are just really dialing down the activity in the brain by shifting into that more centered state, by bringing your awareness into your body, getting grounded, getting centered, getting focused, dropping into that really, mindful approach, if you will, because this is really understanding that both for yourself, maybe your teammates, your team members, it really comes back to how the brain works and how to nurture the highest level of performance by really honoring that innate ability to be productive from that grounded, centered, focused place. And especially when you value your team members as people first and value yourself as that key factor in your performance, in your productivity. So making sure that you're taken care of on that deep level of the nervous system, which of course includes your brain, so that you are really supporting the highest quality of work and really ultimately performing at your best and feeling your best, right? And so we're not pushing ourselves to this level of chronic stress or chronic exhaustion because it's so important to consider the fact that when you do things to not just manage your stress or manage the stress of your teammates, but actually reduce it, it then will impact quality of work and performance and quality of life, right? And long-term health and structure and function of the brain. Like, we want to look at this from both the micro level of an individual and the macro level of an individual for their life and the quality of their life and the length of their life. And then, of course, from the micro level of the business or organization, and then the macro level. Like, you can see how these moment-to-moment decisions have these ripple effects into all areas. And this is what really either supports or derails focus and motivation and momentum, both in yourself and with your team, right? So it's really being intentional with the way that you show up to do tasks, how you do them, the duration for which you do them. And so really making sure that you're not grinding yourself down, you're not grinding your team members down, but we're really giving ourselves this deep level of support on the level of your nervous system, because you're a human, right? You're not a robot. You're not just like mechanically producing things. You are bringing your own energy to the table. You're bringing that sense of playfulness, creativity, joy, right? The true essence of you should be shining into the work that you do. And so if we're just constantly pushing and driving and striving harder, then it's really going to affect the quality of our work. And that's why, because of the way stress actually impacts you on that deeper level. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, how stress can really disrupt focus and memory. And so what can we do, right? And so we're talking about this from a really deep level of supporting yourself to really fundamentally lower stress by shifting the state of your nervous system. And this really supports the human first, right, on the deepest level of the being. And so one thing that we can do is learn to take power pauses. So I wanted to share a power pause that both supports the structure and function of the brain, as well as helps to boost memory and focus. So this is a really cool one, and it's actually quite simple. And you might actually be doing this already. And if, for those of you that remember, or you've seen the show The Simpsons, Mr. Burns would do this all the time. So another random reference. So what you're going to do, as long as you're not driving, because of course you need one hand on the steering wheel, I know you know that, but just for your own safety, if you're able to bring your fingertips together of both hands, okay, so bring your fingertips together. Your fingers can be a little bit bent, right? Bring your fingertips together. As long as that feels okay in your wrist, you can even just bring one or two together. That works too. What we're doing here is creating a loop between our hands, energetically looping back to the heart, but we're actually creating a more synchronized brain activity pattern. So when we bring our fingertips together and we breathe slowly and deeply, in through your nose and out through your mouth, breathe into your belly, and breathe out. Do that again. One more time. So what we're doing here, the two hands coming together, fingers are a little bit bent. If you have your hands in that shape right now, this is called Hakini Mudra. So it's mudra of the mind. And so if you look at your hands, if your hands are kind of bent, dome shape, doesn't it kind of look like the brain? Eh? Oh my goodness, yoga's so cool. So what we're looking here is actually the approximate size and shape of your own brain. So the two hemispheres, the two sides of your brain. If you look at your left hand, your right hand, oh, okay, yeah, maybe you can see that. If you're not a visual person, it's okay, just follow along. So next time you're in front of a mirror, you can make the shape again and put it in front of your head and you're like, oh my goodness, she's right. So approximate size and shape of your brain. So in between the two hemispheres of your brain is a band of nervous tissue called the corpus callosum. When we bring our fingertips together like this and we focus and we center ourselves and we use our breath to quiet the activity of the amygdala by shifting the state of the nervous system, what can be measured, if we could put the little nodes on your head right now, we could measure more electrical activity in that band of connective tissue called the corpus callosum. So what this stimulates is whole brain communication, which stimulates imagination, intuition, intellect, introspection, memory, creativity, decision-making. So this is a really functional tool for not only, again, supporting the structure and function of your brain, but helping to boost your memory. So next time you can't find your phone or your keys, remember to do this. That's the step one, is remembering to do this. But do this and just focus on it. Don't just let it go for a minute. Just focus on the breathing, focus on the fingertips. Pressure is even left to right, right to left, and then just do it for a few rounds of breath till you feel yourself kind of quiet down a little bit. Typically it takes about 2 minutes, and expect your mind to wander about half the time. It's all good. The more adept you get at focusing the mind, the more ninja you get, first of all, but also the more you're able to command the mind rather than it commanding you, because either it runs the show or you run it. That's a whole other conversation. We'll save that for another time. But because it stimulates the whole brain communication, likely you will find that after shortly you're like, oh, I left it in the car. And you just have this boop, flash of inspiration, okay? So whether it's regarding where your phone is or what to do for your next email campaign, oftentimes you'll get a bit of a download. Sometimes right away, sometimes later, but that's the power pause I wanted to teach you today. And the cool thing about the power pauses is that they're so simple, right? So simple. And what we're doing here is by slowing the breath down and allowing you to get a little more relaxed, a little more focused. It actually directly impacts the vagus nerve because the state of the body comes to a more regulated place. And so we're receiving those signals from the heart rate rhythm, which then signals up to your brain that everything is, steady and calm and you're okay and there's no tiger for you to run from. And so we get that quieting signal. And when we have the coherence between the heart and the brain, then everything starts to get a little more grounded and focused. Simple, fast, super effective. So that is a power pause, and that will help you with your focus and your memory and your stress. So you're welcome. I love you too. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And again, if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to me. And if you feel like this is something that would be supportive for you and your teams, then definitely send me an email or a DM and we can talk about setting up a free insight session where we do an audit of the 9 success busting habits that might be happening in your organization that are stealing focus, time, productivity, joy, happiness, all the things affecting retention, motivation, productivity, performance. So yeah, I'd love to connect on that. Feel free to send me a DM or an email if you're interested in setting up that free 30-minute consultation. I would love to connect with you and share these tools with you and your organization as well, because even just that level of clarity that you get from the insight session is really potent. So until next time, everyone, take good care. And I look forward to next week sharing more powerful and potent tools for you to not only reduce your stress, be more emotionally resilient, feel more grounded, be able to show up fully in everything that you do and truly excel and thrive and ultimately enjoy your life. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Take good care. Aloha, everybody. Bye-bye.